Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziol.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Joining me today is the terrific Sara Passamante from Compeer. Thanks for being on the show, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
Yeah, we were just talking off the air about fate and how things just fall into place. And this meeting has definitely fallen into a great place. So awesome to have you on the show. Why don't you just start off by kind of telling the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Compeer?
Sure. So my name is Sara Passamante. I am the CEO at Compeer Rochester. I've been with this organization for 19 years this month. So I started as an intern from Nazareth College. I'd never heard of Compeer, which I know a lot of people haven't, but I was so glad that I was introduced to it because I ended up making my career here. Growing up here, I took over the helm right before the pandemic, so experienced that whole fun saga along with everybody else. So that was kind of cool, that I took over and I knew a lot about Compeer and I knew nothing about a pandemic, but nobody else did either.
Yeah,
So that was kind of nice.
put you on equal grounds.
Exactly. Didn't have to host the golf tournament that year, so
Yeah.
that was pretty nice. But back, before that, I was a psychology major at Nazareth. I grew up in the Gates Chili area. I've been in Rochester pretty much my whole life. Family of musicians, so I also have a band, and it's normal for people in my family to have bands and do music. So I have a nice little outlet on the side of my nonprofit work. And other than that, I have a almost 4-year-old daughter who was also born during the pandemic. So I always look at time in this new weird way, as a lot of other people do. It's like the before times, and then we have, post pandemic, but I also have a child that coincides with post pandemic. So it's just wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what's kind of neat is the show sort of formed and started during the pandemic, and part of the focus was talking about how did organizations and companies, pivot, and what were they doing. So part of what the show That Sounds Terrific was for was to kind of help people that were doing maybe similar things, come out on top when it came to the pandemic. But that's awesome. Your family expanded. So whatever nice things could have happened out of a pandemic, sounds like it kind of did for you, and in Compeer, that's great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Compeer Rochester and what it is that you all do?
Yeah, so Compeer is a nonprofit mental health organization. We're non-clinical, meaning we don't employ therapists. We work alongside therapists and referring mental health professionals, even school social workers, primary care physicians. Everyone's tackling mental health now, right? So
Right.
you don't have to be a private psychologist with a home office, but we can take referrals from almost any mental health professional to support an individual. And we serve people ages 5 and up. So it's
Mm.
definitely, it's not an early childhood program, but it's a youth to adult, through your lifespan program. And we take these referrals and we meet these individuals and we pair them with community volunteers who are also intaking on the other side of things. Compeer is basically a 50-year running program in Rochester. It was founded in Rochester. So back in 1973, rewind, there was a tiny little program called Adopt a Patient that was operating out of the Rochester Psychiatric Center.
Mhm.
1973, Rochester Psychiatric Center was full to the brim. The towers were full. I mean, it was just full. It was right around deinstitutionalization. So Compeer
Mhm.
was born as people were getting released from the hospital settings. And while certainly most of those people shouldn't have been in a hospital setting and would never be in a hospital setting today, they also weren't ready to just go out in the community and fend for themselves. So
Mhm.
the model became community based. These, 8 to 10 volunteers followed individuals out in the community. And then there became this need not only to recruit more volunteers, but the State Office of Mental Health asked our founder, Bunny Skirble, to replicate the program throughout New York State. So she received this dissemination award. All these little programs started popping up all over New York. Then we introduced youth programming. Before it was just kind of an adult to adult model. Then you have adult to youth. Rochester remains because we're the original program, we remain, I would say, the most developed and robust because we get to try everything before other Compeer
Hmm.
locations do. But the newest affiliate opened up in London in 2020. So it's still being replicated worldwide. We have the headquarters actually exist in Buffalo now. So Compeer Buffalo hosts the international program and would be the place that other people are getting started. But it really just comes down to this model of intentional friendship, making sure that everybody has, even if it's just a few hours a month with another individual to go explore our community together. And I think that certainly more recently, like Compeer was ahead of its time. We knew
Hmm.
what human connection was doing for people anecdotally. Then all of a sudden, 2021, you're getting Surgeon General warning about loneliness. So here we
Yeah.
are.
Wow. That is a lot. You covered it all. Well, that's great. This was a wonderful show. No, but like there's so many cool things that you're doing, and I have to kind of think about what direction I want to go in. I guess like and maybe we start sort of from the beginning. Like, how does like a referral work? What's the kind of criteria for services?
Yeah, so we get a lot of these word of mouth type referrals where people hear about it and they're like, oh, I want to be a part of that, or I want my child to be a part of that. So we sometimes have to walk an individual or a family member through the referral process because our model really depends on that referring mental health professional. When I say we're non-clinical, I mean we try not to touch that at all because
Hmm.
there are people that are better suited to assist on that level, whereas we really want to be part of the natural support system. So if somebody's interested, we will ask, do you have somebody you're working with that could make this referral on your behalf? And if they don't, we do have resources in place where we can either connect them to a, referring mental health professional or connect them to somebody who's going to get them there. It could
Hmm.
be a way around, but we have a waiting list and we can talk about more of this later, but we maintain waiting lists of over 100 people at any given time because the service is desired, and that's great. It's nice to know we're wanted. We're never fighting for like to sell our program.
Hmm.
However, sometimes it becomes this wait for a volunteer. Many times it becomes a wait for a volunteer and we're not picking up the pieces on the other side. And that's been a challenge even prior to the pandemic. It's, a lot of people are just not in a place in their own lives, especially now, to give back. But
Hmm.
we try to make this opportunity really, achievable for anybody. But getting the referral is sort of like half the battle. And once somebody
Hmm.
is in Compeer, they can get to know us on many levels prior to getting that one-on-one match. So we offer events and activities, usually monthly. We have a fantastic veterans program, which we can talk about a little later. That is truly like a walk-in program, and you can, as long as you identify as a veteran, you can come in and access some of these recreational activities. But a lot of the art form comes in making a match. So we have these waiting lists and we have these
Hmm.
volunteers coming in. We have to narrow down that 100-person waiting list to like 3 people we think you're gonna match with. And
Hmm.
I used to be a coordinator because I've had like almost every job here. And when I was a coordinator trying to prep volunteers for their match, we would start with things, the easy part, like what's your age range you're interested in? Where do you live? I'm not going to send you, 30 minutes across town to pick somebody up. And then what's your experience and what's your comfort level and what are you into? Because I
Hmm.
can match somebody based on interests. I can match somebody based on neighborhood. Those are the things that will contribute to the longevity of a match. And that's how we've had some matches going for decades. So I think
Hmm.
our longest running match is 35 years.
Wow.
I've been connected with individuals personally in the program for the 19 years I've been here. So it becomes very organic. It becomes very much just a part of your life. It's certainly become a part of mine. So I love that. I despise the wait, but I know that once somebody is matched with the right person, it can be this lifelong service that almost no other agency can provide because so much of the medical model is about, getting people in and you treat them and then you let them
Right.
go. Or, even behavioral health programs,
Hmm.
even if we know that mental illness may be a lifelong challenge, some programs just aren't built and sustainable,
Hmm.
beyond a year. So I do love that about what we have to offer.
It's interesting, when you mentioned that you've had almost every position that there is in your organization, you don't hear that very often about leaders, especially nonprofits. I've seen that, like, so many hires, like, this person came from, this other nonprofit, and now they're the president or CEO of this, because it's got to be a kind of a unique experience, and kind of probably a benefit for you, right? To know all the ins and outs of all the positions.
Well, it certainly benefited me with the pandemic. Like I said, I mean, and I applied for this position. I told my boss, I said, don't tell anybody, but I won't leave if you don't give me this job. But I wasn't ready to
Hmm.
part ways with Compeer by any means. But then I kept thinking, oh my goodness, if somebody else got this job, they would have known nothing and
Hmm.
nothing. So at least I knew Compeer. I just felt so relatable to staff that were coming up, behind me. And even like our interns, I always joke, I'm like, I was an intern, like I
Hmm.
really do get it. And even understanding the struggles of a volunteer coordinator,
Hmm.
and knowing that it's not as easy as just putting up like a billboard and you're going to get 100 volunteers through the door. So I've been able to appreciate that so much. And just this mission, I mean, it's the way that I've been able to give back. It's the way that I've been able to sort of replicate myself. If I always thought I was going to be a clinical psychologist. If I could have maintained a caseload of, 15 to 20 individuals, cool. Once I
Hmm.
found out I could sort of train people, I could train people to be volunteers and almost duplicate myself and the work that I wanted to do. It just became more, things just felt more achievable. And I think I've experienced less burnout than a lot of people who work in mental health and human services, because we're not the be all end all solution, but we're a
Hmm.
great part of that solution.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, so you got matched now, all right? You've been
Mhm.
referred, you got matched. What's kind of the next step? What does someone expect?
So if it's a child to an adult match, we always introduce a volunteer to the parent or caretaker. We want to make sure that that's a good fit, and that a parent's going to be a great expert on their child and make sure that they think that that's a good match for them. And then we have if it's an adult client, we just do that meeting between a volunteer coordinator, the volunteer, the client, and sort of send them on their way. So
Mhm.
Rochester is a great community, especially this time of year. Now that we're getting into festival season and things like that, just we hope that people will do what they normally do, and they're just bringing somebody else along. So it's not meant to be this really intricate service. It's not meant to be, these huge, like immediately life changing goals set and things like that. Um, we want to give our clients good things to talk about. So if they get to talk about how they went to a Red Wings game with their Compeer volunteer instead of talking about how crappy their day was,
Mhm.
cool. I
Yeah.
think that kind of that really is part of the mission is, don't like start creating all these exuberant, going to, we don't want to send you, 2 hours away.
Mhm.
We don't want to send you to amusement parks all summer. Like that's a special occasion type of thing that people can do, but going out for a cup of coffee. And so
Mhm.
with the adult that I was matched with, like, well, I think 13 years ago, we just get together and play board games, we play cards, go have a cup of coffee. If it's nice, I'll go for a walk. When I was matched with kids in the program who are now adults, we used to go actually check out the YMCA. They had a scholarship, and I was able to tag along. So there's
Mhm.
so many things to do. And I always say this is such a great time of year to get started, because you don't have to think too hard about activities. They're all happening. And like I said, Compeer hosts its own activities too. So we try to build in at least one activity a month that nobody has to think about it. You just come.
Mhm.
And then summer, we're usually blessed with things like a nice, chunk of Red Wings tickets people can attend for free.
Mhm.
The auditorium theater gives us a lot of play tickets and things like that. So we're well connected with our community partners, and they make it really easy for people, I think, to carry out this mission of, just going and getting comfortable, going to a place in the community that then that person can go on their own someday if they're feeling more comfortable. It's not meant to be this vacuum that just happens where you get this special time with somebody and then, the rest of your week is meant to be like boring. We don't
Mhm.
want that. We want people to understand their community, get more familiar with it, and be able to do some of these things on their own
Cool.
and
Cool.
make other friends.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
my favorite stories is I have a board member who was he was a Compeer volunteer for 30 years before he joined the board. His name is Mike. Mike got matched with a young guy named Dan back 35 years ago. And this is a male match, which we don't get as many males as female volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
They stay matched for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Dan becomes the godfather to Mike's child. Dan becomes best friends with Mike's friends to the point where they don't Mike doesn't even hang out with him anymore. He's so connected. He got introduced to this whole other hub of people that he could do things with. So I love that exponential piece too. That is it's this ripple effect that can be so powerful.
It does sound like a great way to kind of get people, sort of networking and back into the fold of the community. It's just through another person. That's really good model.
Yeah.
So with you've mentioned events a couple times. What kind of events do you guys host? The monthly Compeer activities. What are they?
We'll do anything from a crafting event. If it's a smaller group, we can host something in our conference room. We don't do a ton of stuff in the office. We're in the Monroe Square building, which we have space here to do some things. We had a video game truck come a couple months ago, so
cool.
we do clubhouse go-karting. We'll do a sea breeze trip once a year, cookouts, holiday parties. Whatever people ask for, we kind of, put the word out, are there any events you'd like to see happen? Are there any new businesses that have opened up that you'd like to, to start frequenting? So yeah, it's a nice mix.
Cool. And so how does volunteering come into play? Like, what are you looking for in a volunteer?
We are looking for people 18 and up. The age is the, the main eligibility criteria that we can't really get around. It's nice if you have a car, although you don't have to have a car, but as long as you have access to transportation, because we're asking you to meet with somebody out in the community. If we're looking for somebody who's interested in working with a teen or a child, somebody who, they don't necessarily have to have, 5-year-old energy, but somebody who's going to enjoy some of those youthful experiences. If we're looking for somebody to match with one of our adult clients, it can be anything from I'm interested in, quiet cup of coffee, quiet chats at the coffee house to we're going to go play pickleball. So we take people from all walks of life. We take people who just have that desire to befriend somebody and kind of go on this ride with us of, again, that intentional friendship that will hopefully become a very natural part of your week. And we ask for 4 hours a month, which doesn't sound like a lot. We're talking an hour a week, maybe 2 hours every other week, but it is a commitment. So above everything, we're looking for people who can commit to that beyond episodic volunteering. We love our clean sweeps and we love getting everybody together to rally around, one day or one season, but we are truly asking for that commitment because the last thing you want to do is introduce somebody to somebody new and then they're gone after 3 months. So while we don't by any means expect volunteers to volunteer for 35 years, we do ask for a 1-year commitment for that reason. So yeah, just people who have that little bit of extra time, people that wouldn't mind somebody tagging along for a ride. And just somebody who can model those social skills.
What kind of training can they expect?
So we actually mandate a training. It's you come in, there's a multiple step process. We do background checks. We're putting kids in cars with strangers.
Yeah.
So we have multiple levels of background checks. That being said, we will accept volunteers who have, if you have history, a lot of people do. Sometimes those are the most relatable people that our clients are looking for. We have a few, hard stops at certain charges and things like that, but the background checks are all done internally. So we are able to, handle most of those within one appointment. And the training is about 2 hours. We do almost everything one-on-one. So we're really trying to get to know our volunteers. We don't do a lot of group orientations and group trainings, aside from once people are already matched. So that first training is going to cover things like Compeer guidelines. How do you build a relationship with somebody? How do you set those boundaries? What happens if there's a crisis? We do a little mental health 101, and then we spend a little bit more time talking about potential matches and how, their symptoms may play out in
Hmm.
a Compeer friendship. So everything's very tailored, everything's very individualized, but we do require that training prior to the match. We also ask that our volunteers connect with the mental health professional who referred the client, because they might be able to say right then and there, like, "Yeah, I think you're going to be a great match," or they may contact Compeer staff afterwards and say, "I don't know if that's the right fit." So we do depend on that part too, kind of keep things
Hmm.
moving. We introduce, like I said, a volunteer to a parent if it's the children's program, and
Hmm.
then they're matched. So we do offer 4 to 6 additional trainings a year that the volunteers can come to. We try not to, mandate too much, but those are the ways that we operate safely and effectively, and especially during COVID. I mean, there were so many regulations that we had to follow as
Hmm.
really a pseudo healthcare organization, because even though we can say all day we're non-clinical, we're sort of still functioning in that
Yeah.
space. So we spent a lot of time getting policies and things like that up to speed from a health, standpoint. But we've always had very solid policies when it comes to matching, getting people
Hmm.
together, because it is it's people, and it's community based. It's not dropping somebody off at one location and it's all super monitored and supervised and everything. But we also think that um, because it happens in the community, and because it's not always functioning as a program, that's what makes it feel good
Yeah.
and something that you can continue to dedicate your time to. We do ask those volunteers to report monthly. So they do have
Hmm.
those reporting requirements. We say, what did you do? Where did you go? Any concerns?
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, you picked on the next question was like, is there any kind of reporting or stuff you have to do? Um, is there like expectations around like, places they're going and stuff like that? Are there like is the volunteer paying for those experiences or like how does that work?
We ask for a 50-50 split whenever possible. Now, granted, if you are a volunteer and you want to treat your client on their birthday,
Hmm.
holiday, or it's something you really, really want to do and you just, want to foot the bill, that's okay. We just try to not set those precedents that it's always the volunteer paying out of pocket.
Yeah.
We preach all the time about low cost, no cost activities. That's why we line up so many discounts and freebies. Some of our local museums will do free admission or buy one get one admission, so that's cool, because then you might be paying for yourself as a volunteer, but the client gets in for free. Or some
Hmm.
people will then split that cost of one ticket down the middle, so it's really designed to be affordable for everybody.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So again, kind of along the lines of money, but on the other side of things. So if here's a kind of a tricky question. If money were no object, like what is the one thing that you'd like to bring to Compeer that is like a kind of a wish list item for you?
It- it's really more marketing to get the volunteers. So I can say, yeah, let's build a nice facility where there's cool roller coasters inside, but it's not, the community is so rich in activities and things like that. I don't really need to invent that, but what I do need are the volunteers. So my wish list is always going to be, those billboards, honestly,
Yeah.
just ways to really capture as many people as possible, just to plant the seed. Because I find so many people, they're like, "Oh, I'd love to do something like that, but I just don't have the time." I don't want to chase after people who don't have the time, but
Yeah.
maybe that person 5, 10 years from now has the time, and I want to make sure they remember Compeer. So a
Mhm.
lot of my wish list items are in that marketing. And I would say for the first 30 years of our history, it was like pulling teeth to get any dollars. Everybody wants to support a program, right? We
Mhm.
have a wonderful program, but the program can't operate without
Without the marketing
volunteers.
and volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's a
Yep.
good
So I want my
answer.
billboard.
I know you shared one like sort of personal experience and story, but like what's something that's like just really great, really terrific that came out of Compeer that you just want to share with the audience, like a great success story?
Well, I'm currently appointed executor of a will of the grandmother of the children I was matched with when I first started this program.
Mhm.
Again, we don't expect all of our volunteers to become executors of people's wills after 20 years, but I've gained these relationships with these two now young adults, really three. There's three siblings, and I've learned so much about I've learned more than I ever wanted to know about probate and surrogates court.
Hmm.
But being able to stay connected to a family that long, to have that trust put in me, like that's been really special,
Hmm.
as challenging as it can be. But I've been able to watch these kids grow from 7, 8 years old to now 25 and 26 years old.
Hmm.
And they're running a household by themselves, without their, their caretaker that was with them for all those years. They're learning how to pay bills, they're learning how to budget. So we get this really direct witnessing to people growing. And it may not be growing over that much time. I can't stress that enough, that this is
Hmm.
not necessarily typically what we're looking for, but to be able to witness that personal growth in other people, and then to see it in yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't get into Compeer, didn't stay as long as I have, but I hear so many volunteers say that this has made as much of a difference in my life,
Yeah.
maybe more than the person that I was linked up with.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget about, nonprofit and volunteering work is that you're not just giving to the person or to the organization or the community, you're giving back to yourself. It's one of those experiences that you learn, you grow, right? With every step that you take in that volunteer experience. And so you're doing great things for other people, which makes you feel good, but you're also like, you're learning along the way.
Yeah.
So this sounds like a really, terrific experience for anyone.
Yeah.
Just to spend a couple hours a day, a day, a couple
Oh,
hours
yeah.
a week or month on, and you kind of get a lifelong friend out of it,
Mhm.
and maybe you learn about how to be an executor for a will. That's
Sometimes you just become that expert you didn't want to. It's like the job nobody wants,
yeah.
but no, it's been very, very valuable for me. And we started seeing research come out. Now, this was prior to the pandemic. I don't know what the pandemic's done to these statistics, but that volunteering actually has an effect on your lifespan. I mean, backed
Mhm.
up with all this data about increased lifespan, healthier as you are aging, decreased heart issues, improving your own mental health when you volunteer, and volunteering in a relational capacity. I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't write this stuff. This is just writing itself. It's proving itself. All the things I said anecdotally for years, I'm like, no, this is real. So and again, it kind of remains to be seen what these after effects of the pandemic are on those types of statistics. But
Mhm.
I had so many people calling me in April of 2020. Now, mind you, we're all virtual. I'm also 7 months pregnant at that point,
Mhm.
taking these interviews with the news stations on, from my kitchen. And I'm like, we have never had this much press in our 50 years,
Right.
because everybody wanted to do something and they didn't know how to help. Everyone felt so helpless
Mhm.
and just wanted some way to feel effective. Maybe they were let go from their jobs or furloughed and they're like, what do I do? How can I help? So we had a lot of people connected virtually during the pandemic too, which was wonderful. There was still a way to do it.
Mhm. That's awesome. I wish that some of that stayed with you over time though, right? So you had that marketing still coming in.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. So, and it's, this is our month. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. That's why I
yep.
hit you up. I said,
Yeah.
this
This
is
is
the
the
time,
time,
right?
right?
And we share the stage this month with many of our partners. So, I'll shout out to our Mental Health Association chapter of Rochester, Monroe County, NAMI, the National
Mhm.
Alliance of Mental Illness, our Rochester chapter there. So many great, certainly clinical programs that are trying to tackle mental health, but our partners in this work, like East House is upstairs in our building. We're all kind of wrapping around these more social supports and social influencers of health that, in tandem, we can tackle this problem. We can figure out how to end loneliness. I really do believe that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so funny. That was sort of my next question is like, what are some partners that you work with that you want to thank? And you hit up on those already. So you're on my interview wavelength right now. But like, I guess what's next? You're doing some celebration around May and awareness.
Yep.
But like, what's coming in the future for Compeer?
So we're coming up on all of our fun months. What I like to say, that I was sharing with you before we got on here about grant writing season and how, it's necessary, but it's not as fun as a cookout. So in June, we have two cookouts, one for our veteran program and one for all of our participants, including our veterans. We also have probably, I think we're doing a Sea Breeze event during the summer. We get hit up for a lot of tablings over the summer. So
Mhm.
festival season, you should see Compeer out at some of these tables. We will be recruiting volunteers. We will be providing clients with or prospective clients with information. So if you see the Compeer table, make sure you stop by and say hi, even if you can't volunteer. We won't strong arm anybody into volunteering. We need people to be ready to do it, right? But we want you to
Mhm.
see us. And then we will be coming up on walk season. So prior to the pandemic, we always did a sports luncheon and a golf tournament, sports luncheon, golf tournament. So gala style, kind of traditional fundraising. 2020 did not have either of those things, but we did have a virtual walk in November, and that became our new signature fundraiser. So Sunday, November 3rd is the Compeer Mile, the Walk to End Loneliness. This will be our 5th walk. And this is an in-person event. So we will be walking from Compeer's space on Monroe Avenue downtown. So we're going to check out some of the new developments over on Broad Street. So we actually get to walk down Monroe. We'll stop at some stops along the way. We've had some awesome partners with us in the past, and we will end at Strong Museum of Play again this year. We did that last year. Free admission for kids for the walk. Sometimes there's a little ticket sale for the museum admission. It just kind of depends. And we'll be pushing that out. Registration will probably come July or August. So I will definitely let you know. We'll share on social and things so people know how to
Yeah.
get connected to the walk. But it's so much fun, and it's not a traditional walk. We have some
Mhm.
stops. We get some snacks.
Sweet.
we
That's
have
awesome.
cookies sometimes. It's balance.
Yeah. Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah.
So I guess now it's the part of the show where I usually ask, like, is there anything we haven't talked about that you definitely want to highlight about Compeer and what you do? I know we talked about a lot. That's the big
I'll
stumper.
add, we have a lot of wraparound services. So I've talked a lot about volunteer program, and that is that is the Compeer program. But
Hmm.
we also have some fee for service programs in behavioral health for people that need a little bit more support. Because
Hmm.
we do sometimes have people that are referred that are not eligible for a volunteer. They're not ready for a volunteer for whatever reason. And we are an employer of peers. So we have certified peers come in and work with individuals who may need a little bit more of that targeted intervention for maybe 3 to 9 months. And then the hope is that they then get assigned a volunteer to kind of continue all that good
Yeah.
work, that hopefully things that they've learned. We also have a wonderful family support program. So if a child is matched in the youth program with a volunteer, their parent or caretaker will also have access to a family peer mentor who can help them navigate some of the systems around here. Our adult peer specialists, same type of thing. We have youth peer specialists who are younger adults who help some of our younger kids with some of their issues. And then again, that veterans program. So I can't stress this enough. If you are a veteran, we don't need your paperwork. We don't need you to produce anything. If you identify as a veteran, you are welcome to come to our events and activities for vets. We have a golf league in the summer. We have fishing trips. We have bowling. So if you go to compeerrochester.org, no matter who you are, you will find something interesting, whether you are interested in volunteering, whether you need services, if you want to check out our event. We're also taking nominations for school mental health professionals for the Jamie Lynn Hurd Salatino Award, which will take place at our cookout. So you'll see all that on our website. If you want to nominate somebody, sign up for an event, just come check it out, dip your toe into Compeer. We would love to meet you.
Awesome. There's
Yeah.
just so much there. I probably could talk to you for another like hour and we would still wouldn't have scratched everything, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think a lot of people get connected and they're like, oh, I didn't know you serve kids, or oh, I didn't know you serve vets, or I didn't know you served adults. And you kind of
yeah,
we have to have this long of a conversation at bare minimum for somebody to get even a
the whole
touch of
show.
the whole
Yeah.
picture. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much. You're doing like terrific things. Compeer is doing terrific things in Rochester and then all throughout with the lives that you're touching and supporting. And then again, the volunteers are getting a lot out of this too. This isn't a one-way kind of one-sided thing. So I urge my listeners to kind of reach out to Sarah to check out the website. We're going to put everything in the show notes. Definitely follow them on social and try to find a way to get involved and support Compeer. They're doing some great things for a lot of wonderful people. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.